Po got everything he ever wanted, and for a while, he still couldn't accept it. That's what makes Kung Fu Panda hit so much harder than people give it credit for. On the surface, it looks like a simple story about confidence. Believe in yourself. Work hard. Become the hero. Nice message. Clean message. Easy message. But that's not really what this movie is doing. Underneath the jokes, the dumplings, the training montages, and the chaos, this is a story about something a lot more painful and a lot more familiar. It's about what happens when you spend so long imagining a better version of yourself that your real self starts to feel like a disappointment. It's about carrying around a private blueprint for who you think you should be and slowly convincing yourself that who you are right now just isn't enough. And that's why Po matters. Because Po doesn't fail at first because he's lazy or untalented or secretly unworthy. He fails because he's trying to become someone else. That starts way before he ever reaches the Jade Palace. It starts in the noodle shop. Let's have a second watch on this. Po lives inside a life that's already been planned for him. His father makes noodles. His family has always made noodles. The future is neat, simple, mapped out, and fully waiting for him. And on paper, there's nothing tragic about that. It's stable, it's respectable, it's even loving. Mr. Ping isn't cruel. He isn't trying to crush Po's spirit. He thinks he's handing him a life. But upstairs, in Po's room, you can see the truth immediately. The room is full of kung fu, full of admiration, full of obsession, full of that quiet, embarrassing hope people carry when they want something they've already decided they can't have. That detail matters because Po doesn't talk about kung fu like a person who thinks it's still possible. He talks about it like someone talking about an old dream they carefully packed away years ago. Not with rage, not with grief, just with that flat, settled tone people use when they've made peace with less. And honestly, that's one of the saddest feelings there is. Because suffering still has motion in it. Suffering means some part of you is still fighting, but settling is different. Settling is heavy. Settling is when the fight is over before anyone else even realized it started. Settling is when you stop saying, "This is what I want," and start saying, "This is just how life is." Po had already done that before the movie even began. So when Oogway announces the Dragon Warrior selection and the whole valley rushes to the Jade Palace, Po runs there too. Of course he does. That buried part of him is still alive. Barely, but alive. And even then, the movie makes something painfully clear. Po doesn't get into his destiny by sheer confidence. He almost misses it entirely. The gates are closed. The tournament has started. His father is standing there with the apron, with the practical answer, with the life Po was always supposed to return to. And if those fireworks hadn't blasted him into the arena, he probably would have gone home. That's huge, because it shows how deep his self-rejection really goes. Po doesn't just think the dream is unlikely. He thinks it's not for him. He has already internalized the idea that real things happen to other people. Chosen people, disciplined people, built people. Not someone like him. Then he lands in the arena. Oogway points, and suddenly the thing he always wanted is right in front of him, and his face doesn't say triumph, it says panic. Because getting what you want is terrifying when wanting it was safer than having it. Now, everyone around him thinks it's a mistake. Shifu thinks it's a disaster. The Furious Five think it's a joke. And Po thinks the exact same thing. That's what makes the early part of this movie so brutal. The palace doesn't introduce insecurity into Po's life. It just gives his insecurity a louder voice. Shifu trains him the same way he trained the Five, which sounds fair until you actually think about it. The whole system was built for different bodies, different histories, different instincts, different strengths. Po gets crushed by every drill because every drill was built around proving competence in a shape he doesn't have. And when that happens, Po doesn't stop and wonder whether the standard itself might be wrong for him. He just takes it as confirmation. Of course I can't do this. Of course I don't belong here. Of course they were right. That is such a painfully human reaction. A lot of people live exactly like that. They inherit an image of what success is supposed to look like. A certain personality, a certain body, a certain path, a certain kind of confidence, a certain kind of discipline, and when they can't force themselves into that shape, they don't question the shape, they question themselves. That's Po for almost the entire first half of the movie. He doesn't admire the Furious Five in a healthy way. He turns them into a measuring stick, a checklist. Everything they are becomes proof of everything he is not. Their grace becomes his clumsiness. Their focus becomes his embarrassment. Their power becomes his failure. He's not inspired by the image anymore. He's imprisoned by it. That's why one of the most devastating lines in the whole movie comes later, when Po admits why he stayed. He says the insults hurt, sure, but they could never hurt more than it already hurt just being him. And then he says the real thing, the thing that opens up the whole story. He stayed because he thought if anyone could change him, make him not him, it would be Shifu. That's the wound, not make me stronger, not make me worthy, not even make me a warrior. Make me not me. That's what so many people are really asking for when they chase transformation. Not improvement, erasure. A new body, a new job title, a new relationship, a new city, a new persona, a new version of yourself that somehow kills off the one you're ashamed of. And from the outside, it can look like ambition. It can look like discipline. It can even look admirable. But under that, there's sometimes something much sadder going on. The hope that if you perform well enough, achieve enough, perfect yourself enough, you'll finally escape yourself. Po goes to the Jade Palace for Kung Fu, yes, but emotionally, he goes there to be replaced. And Shifu, without meaning to, keeps feeding that belief. Every method he uses reinforces the same message Po has already been telling himself for years. You are wrong in your current form. Try harder. Become someone better. Stop being this. That's why the kitchen scene matters so much. Shifu finds Po reaching impossible heights, moving with total instinct, doing things his body supposedly shouldn't be able to do, and the difference is almost funny in its simplicity. Po isn't trying to do kung fu. He's just being Po. He's hungry. He's emotional. He's driven. He's in motion. There's no performance in it, no audience, no pressure to fit someone else's form. And suddenly, everything changes, because Shifu finally sees what the movie has been building toward all along. The problem was never that Po had nothing in him. The problem was that everyone kept trying to extract Tiger from Panda. They kept treating difference like deficiency. They kept assuming mastery had to look a certain way. The dumpling training scene is brilliant because it isn't just about motivation, it's about alignment. Po learns when the method actually fits the person. He thrives when he stops imitating and starts inhabiting. His body stops looking like an obstacle and starts looking like intelligence. His appetite, his softness, his weirdness, his unpredictability, all the things that made him look ridiculous under one system become strengths under the right one. That's a lesson a lot of people don't get until much later in life. Sometimes the breakthrough is not becoming more like the people you admire. Sometimes it's finally understanding the rules were written with someone else in mind. Sometimes what feels like failure is just misfit. Sometimes you don't need more shame, more pressure, or more self-correction. Sometimes you need a different approach, a different environment, a different way of reading your own design. And then the movie gives Po the Dragon Scroll. This is the moment everything has been moving toward. The big answer, the secret, the thing that's supposed to close the gap between the self you are and the self you've been chasing. And it's blank. Or at least it looks blank. That's the genius of it. Because the scroll doesn't hand Po a better identity. It reflects him back to himself. No hidden technique, no sacred shortcut, no divine explanation for why he matters. Just his own face staring back. And at first, that destroys him. Of course it does. Because if you've spent your whole life believing the answer is out there somewhere, in some external thing, some title, some approval, some final proof, then a blank scroll feels cruel. It feels like mockery. It feels like the universe confirming your worst fear. There is no secret ingredient. There is nothing coming to save you from being you. Then Po goes back to the noodle shop, and the movie quietly delivers its deepest line through Mr. Ping of all people. The secret ingredient is nothing. And weirdly, that's not nihilistic. It's liberating. Because the point isn't that nothing matters, it's that the magic was never hidden somewhere outside you in the first place. The specialness doesn't arrive from outside like a stamp of approval. It's something you participate in, something you allow, something you believe into being. That's why the moment works. Not because Po suddenly becomes a different person, but because for the first time, he stops asking the reflection to be somebody else. That shift is everything. He looks at himself and doesn't flinch. He doesn't apologize for what he sees. He doesn't bargain with it. He doesn't try to edit it. He doesn't say, "I'll accept myself when..." He just sees a panda, and that's enough. That's why the fight with Tai Lung lands so hard. Tai Lung and Po both hold the same scroll, but they don't see the same thing. Tai Lung sees emptiness because he needed the scroll to validate a fantasy. He needed it to explain his suffering, justify his obsession, crown him as the person he always believed he was supposed to be. So when the scroll reflects only him, he experiences that as an insult, as waste, as unbearable nothingness. Po sees himself, and by then, that has become freedom. That contrast is the whole movie. The scroll didn't change, the person holding it did, and honestly, that's why this story stays with people. Because most of us have our own version of that scroll, the promotion, the relationship, the body, the audience, the achievement, the next thing that will finally make us feel real, chosen, complete. We tell ourselves that once we get there, the shame will disappear. The uncertainty will disappear. The fraud feeling will disappear. But that's not usually how it works, because imposter syndrome isn't just fear of failure, it's fear of exposure. It's the anxiety that the version of you people are applauding isn't the real you. It's the constant suspicion that your acceptance is conditional, that if the mask slips, people will realize there's nothing extraordinary underneath. Just you, just a panda. And the older you get, the more dangerous that blueprint can become, because it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it sounds productive, sometimes it sounds like standards, sometimes it sounds like self-improvement. But if every version of growth in your life is secretly built on the rejection of your current self, then no amount of achievement will ever feel like a rival. You'll keep winning and still feel absent from your own life. Po's real victory is not defeating Tai Lung. It's not even becoming the Dragon Warrior. It's dropping the blueprint. It's finally understanding that the traits he thought disqualified him were never the problem. His softness, his hunger, his awkwardness, his difference. None of those things needed to be erased. They needed to be integrated, seen clearly, used honestly, claimed fully. That's what makes his final line hit, not "I'm a big fat panda." The big fat panda. One version is embarrassment. The other is ownership. One is a label that traps you. The other is an identity you inhabit. And maybe that's the part people need to hear most. You do not become powerful by becoming unrecognizable to yourself. You do not become worthy by sanding off every strange, soft, inconvenient part of who you are. You do not heal by winning the right to stop being you. Sometimes the real shift happens when you stop chasing a fantasy version of yourself and start paying attention to the person who has been here the whole time. The one underneath the performance, the one underneath the comparison, the one underneath the years of trying to earn permission to exist as they are. That person may not look like the blueprint. That person may not move like the people you envy. That person may not fit the system that made you feel behind. But that doesn't mean there's nothing there. It might mean you've been reading yourself through the wrong lens, and that's what Kung Fu Panda understands better than a lot of louder, more serious stories ever do. It understands that self-acceptance is not soft. It's not passive. It's not giving up. It is a brutal, life-altering thing to stop bargaining with your own reflection, to stop asking for another face, to stop waiting for a scroll, a title, or a perfect future to tell you that you're allowed to become fully yourself. Po wins because he stops trying to become worthy of the role and starts inhabiting it as himself. That's the lesson. Not that you should believe in yourself in some vague, motivational poster way, but that at some point, you have to let go of the blueprint that taught you your value was somewhere else. You have to put down the checklist. You have to stop worshiping the costume. You have to stop treating your own reflection like a problem to solve. because the scroll might be blank. And when that day comes, when the thing you thought would transform you finally opens up and gives you nothing but your own face, the question won't be whether there was a secret all along. The question will be whether you can look back at yourself and finally say, without flinching, without apologizing, without reaching for a different answer, "This is enough."